It's going to destigmatize the role of emotions in fields of knowledge, since they're already there anyways, and give us a way for us to account for the role of emotion in a positive way, as actually being a tool that we can use to better know the world. Right? So this is going to be important for all kinds of reasons, but obviously more so as it correlates to power dynamics. Right? So the idea is that if rationality has been the determining factor of who gets to occupy a position of power, well, if that understanding of rationality has been defined with a bias towards men, well then predominantly men are going to be in dominant positions of power, right? Similarly with women. And again, we can expand upon this, be more inclusive and intersectional, and talk about how this also applies to race and socioeconomic status, to name a few, right? So when women and other marginalized groups are identified as being inherently irrational, typically because they are viewed as more emotional, right? These things are tied together. The idea is then that is able to justify their existing subordinated status, right? Oh, the reason we can't give women the right to vote, or we can't allow women to occupy the presidency, right? The reason that women shouldn't be in those positions is because they're not mentally capable, right? Or their bodies are going to get in the way somehow, right? That they're going to be too emotional when they're menstruating, all the nonsense that I know you've heard before, right? That is still utilized today, is based on this underlying association, right, between being irrational and simply having emotions. And let's be really clear on what this means, is even for men, right? Even if this were true, if it were true that men were inherently rational and that women were inherently irrational, and these things are tied to a lack of emotion, that means that men are inherently emotionless, which is basically our definition for what it means to be a sociopath. Okay? So being able to have emotions is no small thing, right? It's a really important facet of being a functional human that is able to engage in the world in a successful way, right? So again, these associations don't really bode well for anyone when we're looking at them closely. Okay, so in the next few passages, I'm not going to go through these because I think these are easier for you to understand on your own, but the basic idea here is that we're going to see a deeper dive into understanding how the notion of rationality has been constructed, right, in academia, and primarily philosophy as the sort of founding of all higher education, right? That all of our concepts of knowledge and reason are going to be permeated with this bias, so they're going to walk you through examples of this and break down exactly how that works. And so I'm going to skip ahead here too, right? I'll let you look at this on your own with Phyllis Rooney, right? But the idea here is that even in, not just in the direct, sort of obviously explicitly misogynistic ways, but even in more masked forms, we see this continued bias reflected in conceptions of reason. And so here, Phyllis Rooney is talking specifically about the use of sex metaphor, right, where you're not only associating irrationality with femininity, but also with a sexually objectified being, right? And so the idea here is that, you see examples of someone being tricked into believing something false is described in the same metaphor as a man being sexually tempted by a woman.